This is episode 7 and we're moving into our first word class, which are nouns. This video is going to explore the semantic and morphological features of nouns as well as their syntactic behaviour. So let's begin with their semantic features. A noun is an object, physical or abstract, people or places. So, John, time, Melbourne, t-shirt, and work are all examples of nouns. Now there are 3 morphological features of nouns. So let's move on to those. Number 1, nouns can be plural. Let's look at that into a little bit more depth, So, there's a range of what plurals look like. Dog becomes dogs by adding an S. Beach becomes beaches with an ES. Man changes the middle of the word and it becomes men. And child also has a similar sounding change in the middle of the word, as well as adding children, the Old English plural ending en. But there are of course some irregular forms. It is English after all. So one sheep is still 2 sheep. Trousers don't have 1 trouser. Rice doesn't have plural rices, although you can have different types of rices. And then there is no such thing as a dreg. And these exceptions show us that a word doesn't have to fill 100% of the definition to make it a noun, as is true for all words and their classes. So sheep, even though it doesn't have a visible plural with an S on the end or anything like that, doesn't mean that it's not a noun just because it doesn't fulfill that particular morphological feature. So we'll go back to our morphological features and look at our second morphological feature. Our second morphological feature is that it takes possessive S. So let's look at that a little bit more deeply as well, because apostrophe S or possessive S can be a little complicated as well. We tend not to use S on common nouns, and we'll learn what they are in the next video. So instead of saying the phone's cord is dangling, we tend to say the phone cord is dangling, or even the cord of the phone is dangling as well. However, if this same phone is at the end of a noun phrase, and we'll meet what a noun phrase is very soon too, then it seems to be fine. For example, we can say the girl's umbrella, but if the girl is currently talking on the phone, we can also say the girl on the phone's umbrella, and that seems to be quite natural. So either way, it's always the noun or noun phrase that carries the possessive S, which makes this a morphological feature of the noun. Let's go back to our morphological features, because I said that there were 3. And our third morphological feature is actually a derivational feature, or the derivational features. So let's write that. Now, examples of derivational features are words, or endings rather, such as shun, shun, itty, ship, such as friendship, ness, kindness, ment, argument, ist, environmentalist, ism, or, let's see if we can get some more in here, ants, performance, for example, ents, and acy, like privacy, to name just a few of the many. So these are, every time we see this at the end of a word, it is most often a noun. Of course there are exceptions, there always are, but we can put these at the end of a word and often turn them into a noun. So these are the identifiable morphological features of a noun. So now that we've looked at its semantic feature and we've looked at the three morphological features, we'll move on now to the syntactic features of a noun. It's our possessive S that we looked at earlier. All right, here we are. Let's look at syntax. So our first syntactic behaviour of noun is that it can follow a or the. Note that not all nouns have a or the, so again, there are exceptions. But if there is an a or the in a sentence, you can guarantee that there will be a noun soon after. Our second syntactic behaviour is that a noun can combine with a verb to make a complete sentence. Examples of this are things like eat something or stop that, those kinds of imperative sentences. And finally, a noun can act as the subject of a sentence. So there are some things that I need to introduce to you before you can fully understand these syntactic behaviours of a noun, but we have to start somewhere, and as we gain more knowledge we can return to this and make a little more sense of them. For now though, it's good to be able to systematically identify what makes a noun with its semantic, morphological and syntactic features. Now, before we move on to verbs, which is the next word class that I'd like to look at, I'm going to spend one more video looking at the different types of nouns. So that's where we're heading to next. Until then, thanks for watching the Language Code.